What can you do to get your charges dropped before you have your first court date? That's what we're going to be answering in this video. My name is Jamahl Kersey. I'm the principal attorney at Kersey Law, and we're a boutique criminal defense firm in San Diego, California. And in this video, we're talking about how you can get your charges dropped before you have court. And so when you get arrested, it's a very stressful time. You're facing criminal charges. You realize there's a possibility you could go to jail. You could lose your job, and you could have a conviction on your record, and that's not a good thing. So what can you do? Is there anything you can do? And yes, and that's what we're going to be addressing in this video. But it's critical that you reach out to a criminal defense attorney immediately. Don't waste time on this. Call a defense attorney as soon as you can. And in this video, I'm actually going to give you 3 different examples of how we were able to help our clients avoid charges before they even had to go to court. So the first one is going to have to do with a high-ranking officer in the Navy. He had gotten into an argument with his wife, and unfortunately, that led to him punching her in the face. The police ended up getting called, and they were both interviewed. So the police interviewed both parties, and our client ended up getting arrested for felony domestic violence. Now, he bailed out of custody and he called us immediately. He was a very smart man. He let us know what was at stake, and essentially we came to find out that if he were convicted of this felony, he would be kicked out of the military and he would lose all of his retirement benefits. So this was absolutely an emergency for our client, and we got started on the defense right away. So we learned more about the situation, got to know him as a person, and he was under the influence of alcohol at the time of the incident, and he had admittedly had a drinking problem. And the most important thing was he wanted to get help, and he had his wife's support. So we had our investigator get an interview with her. She was willing to talk to our investigator, and she did say that her husband hit her. So she was not, and we wouldn't try and tell her to lie, but she certainly wasn't willing to say that this didn't happen, right? So she, doubled down on her version of the story, which was that her husband punched her in the face. And so there was no denying that he actually hit her. But again, she fully supported him. She just wanted him to get the help that he needed, and they very much wanted to stay together. They had already been together for decades in their marriage. And so our client actually ended up taking the initiative to do an inpatient rehab program in order to address his issues. As a high-ranking officer, he has dealt with and seen a lot of stressful issues in his service to the country. And we had a bunch of positive letters of support speaking to his excellent character as a leader and as a serviceman. And we provided copies of his awards and his commendations. And not only was he serving his country, and, thank you to all those who have served. We're here in San Diego, California, so we have quite a few military bases in this area. So we have a lot of people who are military personnel that have us represent them. But he had done a lot of volunteer work as well, and that was also commendable. And so we were able to put together a pretty solid packet of information together and ultimately convince the DA to not file charges in this case. And even though he had actually committed the offense in question. And so this was a very phenomenal result for our team. We were really happy for our client and his family. The second incident involved a nurse, and this actually happened during COVID. And so, as you probably can imagine, doctors, nurses, medical personnel, they were working a lot of hours and under a ton of stress. And this was no exception for our client. And one day after a long shift, she had come home, she got into an argument with her boyfriend, and this argument, unfortunately, had turned physical, and the boyfriend ended up attacking her, and she defended herself, right? So she acted physically in self-defense, and her boyfriend actually ended up calling the cops. They're both giving their statements, but he threw her under the bus because he had 2 strikes, and basically he didn't want to risk someone else calling the police and then them coming, finding out he had 2 strikes, and them just blaming him for the situation. So he proactively called the police, blamed the situation on her, and she ended up getting arrested for felony domestic violence. And she ended up calling us because if she were convicted and even if she were charged, that would cause some problems for her nursing license. And if she were convicted, this definitely would have caused her to lose her license. And her world would have been completely destroyed if she lost her nursing license. She had worked so long to get this license and had been engaged in her profession a long time. She was super passionate about medicine and passionate about her contributions to the service during the pandemic. So we had our investigator reach out to the boyfriend, and he gave a statement saying, it's been really stressful being in a relationship with a nurse during COVID. And one of the important things was that he mentioned that they only get into it when they drink. And so they had both made the decision that they were going to quit alcohol. And this was really important. But the most important thing that he mentioned was that he had actually initiated the aggression, right? He admitted that, she was only acting in self-defense. And again, he had indicated that, hey, listen, I messed up. I just didn't want the police coming and taking me in for a felony and me ending up with some sort of third strike. He, just was really concerned about that. And we were able to take all this information and package it up and provide it to the DA and let them know that, hey, legally, she was acting in self-defense. And if this case were to go to trial, we would be able to demonstrate that. But more importantly, we just wanted to be able to avoid her not having to defend herself at trial. The DA, when they get information and they're looking over a case, they have the discretion to decide whether they're going to file charges or not. And that's ultimately what they decided, that in the interest of justice, they were not going to file charges. And we were very pleased with that result. Our client still has her nursing license and she is happily employed. The last example is going to be an occupational therapist that we represented. He had gotten into an argument with his wife. His wife was also a professional and he ended up punching her, right? And the wife actually did not want to get the police involved. And, both her and her husband as a couple, they wanted to handle this situation in-house. They really didn't want to have DAs and judges and the police making decisions over their lives. And so that was the reason why the wife didn't call the police. However, her dad had found out about what happened and he ended up calling the police. So he called the police and naturally the police went to their house in order to conduct their investigation. His wife didn't lie, so she told the story about what happened, how her husband hit her, and client ended up getting arrested. He bailed out and gave us a call immediately. He had his professional license that he absolutely needed to protect. So again, this was an emergency situation for him and his family. The stakes were really high. His wife actually had just found out that she was pregnant, and their plan was for her to be able to stay home as a stay-at-home mom. And this meant that the client, he really needed to be able to keep his job. He could not afford to lose his job as an occupational therapist. I mean, that's what, he went to undergrad. He got his degrees after his undergrad degree. That was all geared towards him becoming an occupational therapist. So that's all he knew. And so if he were to go to jail, lose his job, and lose his professional license, their family plans would be completely destroyed. And, our client admitted that he had some anger issues. And so we advised him to get enrolled in anger management. So he did that. And not only did he do anger management, he actually started doing therapy. And so he really wanted to address the underlying issues that he had that led to him acting aggressively towards his wife. At the end of the day, he didn't justify his actions or anything like that, but he really felt bad about what he did and he wanted to right his wrongs. They were about to be parents. He knew that he didn't want to carry these bad thoughts, these bad actions, these bad decisions into his, into parenthood. He started therapy, and we wanted to be able to show the DA that, something like this is never going to happen again. This was a one-time occurrence that would never happen again. We also ended up putting together some really positive character information. We had positive letters of support. We had awards that he had gotten from his profession. And so this was all good stuff to show that this was a person, actually this was a couple, because again, she never wanted the police involved. She never wanted criminal charges to be filed at all. So we were able to package all this information and show the DA that, society would be better served in this situation for him to be able to retain his license, retain his job, continue to provide the services that he provides as a professional versus losing everything and derailing his family plan. And the DA ultimately agreed to decline to file charges. And again, that was another positive result that we were really happy about and proud of for our firm. And the common theme, if you're noticing, is we took the time to really get to know our clients. And what we really focused on was, what positive things have they done in their lives? What positive things can other people say about their lives? What do they want for their future? What can we say of their really good character? Again, at the end of the day, the police report is not doing anybody any favors when you've been arrested and you're charged with a crime. At the end of the day, these reports ultimately make you look like a monster. And so we have to balance out these negative things that we're seeing in the report and humanize you and show that you don't deserve to have a conviction on your record. If you're arrested and you're facing criminal charges, you just need to act fast, right? You need to reach out to a solid, experienced criminal defense attorney immediately. And this can be the main difference between you getting convicted and going to jail or being free and with a clean record. Well, I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, show me some love and hit the like button. You can leave me a comment if you have any questions or you just want to talk about what you learned from this video. We'd love to hear your feedback. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications. And as always, we want to thank you so much for watching. And until next time, peace.